Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining me once again on In the Bottle. I'm your host, Angelica Nohra, and it's my aim to educate you on wines from all over the world each week. But before we begin today, let me first thank the team here at Studio 24/7 who, week after week, just show up to make this happen for me, and I couldn't be more grateful. I highly recommend them for all of your virtual events, and I couldn't ask for a better team. And secondly, please remember that this is meant to be interactive. I want your questions and I want your comments. I want to know what you think about what we're talking about, because sometimes when you've been in the wine game as long as we have, you kind of forget what knowledge is common versus what is learnt through years of doing this. So please, if something doesn't make any sense, just let us know. But let's get on to today's show. Wines from a region I think are completely underrated: South Africa. And there is no better person to come on and explain it all to us than my very good friend, Ross Anderson from Brave New World Wine. From the outside, you will think that Ross is very much a quiet and introverted person, but let me tell you, this guitar-slinging, hard-rocking, music-tragic wine guy is anything but that. He was born in Rhodesia, raised in South Africa, and is now proudly Australian. Ross actually fell into the wine game in '96, after his lifelong dream of becoming a military aviator fizzled out. Great story, actually. 24 years, 3 continents, and 1 wine degree later, it's fair to say that Ross has his fingers in many pies. Probably too many pies. When he's not running the wine empire, which trades in old and rare wines and whiskey, you'll generally find him working on the Global Fine Wine Challenge, the Australian and New Zealand Boutique Wine Show, or his main love, Brave New World Wine. It's Australia's largest independent importer, wholesaler, and retailer of quality South African wines. Hey, and then there's his extreme love of classic and hard rock music, but I will not get him started on that one today because we will not have the time to get through this. So please, without further ado, please put your virtual claps together for Ross Anderson. Welcome, Ross.
Hey, Ange, how are you?
It's so exciting. I've been waiting so long for this episode.
We've been waiting a long time to do this.
I
This
think
is
so.
great.
You just kept letting me down, man. What's
I'm
going
sorry.
on? So as you know, this is actually Sparkling Wine Week before we get into South Africa. It's Sparkling Wine Week. So you brought me a sparkling wine.
I did.
Can you tell us, what are we drinking before we get into it? You will learn what South African wine's all about and everything, but we just need a little tipple to get wet the whistle, right?
Indeed. And we're starting with a wine estate from Stellenbosch region in South Africa. And this is a Viognier estate. And it's a 2016 MCC Brut. So MCC is kind of a cool thing in South Africa. It's their take on the traditional French method of...
method traditional.
Method traditional. So it's method cap classique.
Ooh.
And very, very, very posh. And this is
So
a
posh.
Chardonnay Pinot Noir blend.
Okay.
And it's had a secondary fermentation after bottling. And it's been fermenting and then in the bottle for another 30 months. So 2016 vintage.
Lovely.
Let's have a crack.
I think
Let's
we should.
try not to take out the
do
camera
not
crew.
I hope he knows what he's doing here. Tell me a bit. Ooh,
There we go.
that was very professional
go.
of you, Ross.
There she goes.
There she goes. I love it.
That was the car trip in. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So the brand, tell me more about Viognier.
So Viognier have been in our portfolio for just under a year. And they are an estate in Stellenbosch. They've been around for a very long time. And they traditionally focus on the key brands or South Africa's prime brands of Pinotage and Chenin Blanc. And then they obviously ventured out and did a bit of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir for this.
Yeah,
And
cheers.
cheers.
This looks beautiful. You
Here
can
we
tell
go.
it's a vintage because of the colour. It's just
Happy Sparkling Week, everyone.
Happy Sparkling Week, everyone. Absolutely. Oh, delightful. Actually, it's always quite interesting because people think of bubbles and they think of method traditional. They go straight for like champagne, and you're sitting in that $50-$60 mark. Is that
Absolutely.
is that where these kind of wines sit, or are they
This is around about just under $40 a bottle.
okay?
And
And the production level?
small. So Viognier does small batch production, specializing, as I said, in small batch, single block Pinotage, single block Chenins, and then they've got a bit of Bordeaux blend in the portfolio as well, and then the sparkling. So small production. All the guys that we work with are generally small production, with the
Yeah.
exception of 1 or 2.
But then I also get shocked at that because it's like small production for $40. You know what I mean? Like
South Africa,
South Africa.
best kept secrets of the wine world.
And as we're sipping along on this, guys, and I'm sorry that you can't taste that, but this is absolutely delicious. It's got all that beautiful apple core still coming through. A beautiful. It's not brioche or anything, is it? Though, like
I'm finding a bit of breadcrumb on the back.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I love this. This is gorgeous.
It's so
it needs to be a little
lovely.
bit colder, but this is perfect.
That's all right. We don't want
Happy
things too
sparkling.
cold.
Oh, sorry. I understand.
But on that, let's talk about South Africa. Tell me about South Africa as a wine region. When did it start? What should people expect from it? All that kind of thing.
So South Africa has it's been around in the wine industry for a very long time. We've got a history of winemaking which spans about 300 years, and this started. Firstly, it's more described as bridging the gap, the style of South African wine between Old World and New World. So most of the wines are made using New World techniques, but they often have stylistic similarities to the Old World, so to France and to European wines. Our oldest wine estate is in Constantia, and the wines there were famous for being supplied to Napoleon Bonaparte when he was in exile in St. Helena Island. Jane Austen writes about these wines in her novels, and they were served in English courts in the bygone era. And that was the Vin de Constance, a very sweet wine. So we've got really cool history in this space. The wines themselves, so the Dutch East India Company is where this whole thing started, and that was in 1652.
Oh, wow.
So we're 300 years old plus. There was a Dutch surgeon sent to Cape Town on a mission to plant fresh fruit and vegetables, because the sailors that were doing the trip through to India were suffering from scurvy. So his mission was to be sent into Cape Town to plant vines. So that was in 1652, and 7 years later, on the 2nd of February, 1659, the first harvest was pulled out, and we believe, or we think, and there's some documentary that says that they believe there were some Chenin Blanc vines on that ship, but how do we prove that?
You don't know.
So,
I think we can never actually prove the history, but hey, it makes for a great story, right?
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
And then, I think part of the Renaissance is up until 1990, we were in sort of a wine backwater. People didn't really think of South Africa as a fine wine producing area. It was more bulk wines.
Yeah.
And then in 1990,
It's famous for brandy, right?
absolutely, lots of most of the vines were used for distillation. So a hell of a lot of brandy was made. And then in 1990, with the change in the government, markets opened up, and we had an influx of flying winemakers. Pretty much like there was a bit of that coming in and out of Australia as well. And we saw the adaptation of new winemaking techniques, smarter ways of doing things, and the quality just went through the roof. There was a bit of a focus put on Cabernet and Chardonnay and Shiraz, along with what South Africa already had in the ground, Chenin Blanc, and another grape, which we'll talk about in a minute.
I can't wait to talk about that other grape, actually. I'm very excited.
Getting back to what you were saying, up to and into 1990, less than 30% of the grapes were used for table winemaking. 70% was used for distillation.
Wow.
And then by 2003, those numbers had reversed. So 70% plus was going into table wine.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so...
but were the winemakers, but they weren't born and bred winemakers from South Africa? These are winemakers flying into...
I think the education came through for the local winemakers. South Africa's got a really good agricultural college called Elsenburg, which is like UC Davis in California, which is like Roseworthy in Adelaide, and Charles Sturt University in Australia. So very, very high class levels of education, but there was more interest in the industry. And these guys came in and showed South Africa what was happening everywhere else, and they went, oh, right, let's go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's great. Well, look, we've started pretty good. I think
Lavinier, what do you think?
Lavinier has... It's
$40 a bottle?
I think we've done pretty well. Everyone who knows me on this show knows I'm a complete champagne snob. That I would be challenged if it was a blind tasting to know whether that was a vintage champagne or not. So I'm impressed. Thanks for bringing that in.
Absolutely.
But we're going to move on to
Crack
something.
On to next one?
Yeah,
Sure.
we're going to move on to something I don't know of, actually. Let me just pull that out. This is Babiana. Is that a blend? What is this? Let's take that one away.
This is my favorite white wine.
Okay, what is it? Because I was like, is it a grape? I was like, when you said it, I was like, is that a grape? Is it a varietal? What is this?
Babiana is a brand made by a wine estate from the Voorpaardenburg
From the where side?
Cederberg, which
Hang
is
on,
the region.
where?
Oh, here we go. I can see where this is going.
No, hang on. We're going to have a problem with this today because you're going to say words. Yeah, can you say it in the proper Dutch? Yeah,
Yeah,
great. For the proper South
I just did.
Afrikaans. That's great. Okay, sorry. Where's it from? Say it again.
So it's from a region near Paarl.
Nepal.
Nepal.
Okay, yeah.
That's the English pronunciation. And the estate is Vondeling. Now, Babiana is a white blend. It's Chenin Blanc, Roussane, Grenache Blanc.
Oh, wow.
And something else. Can't
Jeez,
quite remember.
You're meant to know this, Ross.
Oh, no, Viognier. There we go. Some Viognier.
Viognier. But
Yeah.
Viognier is quite big. It's
Well, absolutely. I mean, Viognier is used for lifting the aromatics in the wines.
yeah, but I noticed that, sorry to cut you off, but a lot of South African wine is really focused on the Rhone. Like they have a lot of Rhone varietals. Is that intentional? Or?
Right back to where we started the conversation, that crossing that bridge between New World winemaking and Old World style. So always calling back to the French style.
Yeah.
There's a connection to the French Huguenots with the valley, which is called Franschhoek, which is another region. So we've always had that European influence coming through the wines. But yeah, Babiana. I can tell you many interesting stories
tell me about
this place.
Vondeling. Tell me about Babiana.
So
Tell
I've
me
had-
about what this little sustainability sticker means. Like,
Sure.
you'll teach me a lot
I've
about
tried
this.
multiple vintages of this wine, and this remains my favourite white wine. I can tell you many weird and drunken stories about sitting in the cellar door barrel room at 10 o'clock at night drinking whiskey. That was one trip. We never forget that. We'll often talk about it when I'm in touch with the winemaker.
Yeah.
But Vondeling, Babiana, big into conservation. So the Cape Floral Kingdom, there is such a thing as the Cape Floral Kingdom, and it's one of the most diverse in the world. It's one of 6 floral kingdoms in the world, and the ecosystem there supports sort of around about 9,600 plant species. So it's a unique environment. And Vondeling are involved with conservation, and Babiana, or its full name, I'll need to give you the full name, it's Babiana noctiflora.
Oh,
and it's
interesting.
it says here when they flower, they release the scent in the early summer evenings, and they employ environmental farming and survival for this region. So they're really great guys to work with. The winemaker Matthew Copeland's a good friend, and a gun winemaker, and we work with Vondeling white, but they're also bringing in the Chenin and their rosés, Chardonnay, Pinotage, and I think we've got a Cabernet, and they're all on the water at the moment on the way over
wonderful.
here. So, yeah, we're looking forward to really building Vondeling in as one of our core pillars. So have a look. See
Have a
what you think.
look,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
even vintage 2017, that colour is just gorgeous.
This is a
again.
beautiful wine.
It's got this beautiful, I don't know if you can see that on the screen properly, but it's got this beautiful deep golden colour. And even on the nose, like this just pops full of not only like stone fruit, but lots of that mallow kind of,
Lots of mallow.
lots of mallow.
Lots of butter. I love the
Lot of
butter in
it.
the toast, and you can really get that. I can get a lot of coconutty oak on this.
Coconut, that's,
Yeah.
yes, definitely, the
I
coconut.
love this wine. Again, this goes great with seafood or with white meat,
Yeah, but you know what's
chickens
got
and things like
on
that.
the nose? So I get obsessed, like some of these white blends, and I think Australia's not doing white blends good enough. Like I think a lot of the South Africans are doing white blends really, really well. The complexity of the nose, where there's even like a minerality in there, which is strange. There's a confectionery note, like some sort of, like, can't think, it's like I can't think of like some sort of vanilla, like a vanilla lolly that comes through, which is just gorgeous.
Absolutely. I love this wine.
But there's something else. There's something else in that. It's driving me nuts. I can't pick it up, but there's something else. It's really complex.
Do you know what? I'm almost getting like an essence of a Marlborough Sauv Blanc in that there's that gooseberry, or that
Gooseberry?
asparagus-y edge. Very, very light. Sitting in the back end there.
Yes, but
That-
licoricey, like the aniseed.
Yeah,
There's
aniseed.
aniseed.
There we go. That's it.
That's aniseed. That's what I'm getting from this, which is so yummy. It's like the old licorice rock lolly that we used to
We didn't
eat.
get them.
Sorry, South Africans didn't eat those. Sorry, but that's beautiful. Okay, sorry, I should actually taste it, right?
Have a look. See what you think.
Oh, that's delicious.
I find it so layered. It's like textural and
That is
layered
yum.
and layered, and it keeps. The thing I love about this wine is it just sits. I can still
And
taste
the
it.
acidity's
I can
gorgeous.
still taste it. I
Yeah.
can still taste it. It's almost. It hasn't even dissipated. It's still there.
This has years on it. Like this is really like you could just lay it down, but
Top
it's
tier.
it's still got all that beautiful freshness. You're 3 years in, and it's got so much freshness on the palate. That is so yummy.
That stone fruit is so
Stunning.
strong.
It's
beautiful
so
wine.
yummy. It tastes like Apricot,
Apricot, yeah.
so much apricots.
it.
I know these things. like super apricot-y, but lots of that beautiful creaminess coming through, lovely acidity, beautiful finish. Absolutely stunning. Yeah. This little sticker is quite famous. Can they, I don't know if they can do that, but I'll pour it down. There we go. There's a beautiful sticker that comes on all the South African wines. What, can you explain that?
It's something to do with sustainability. To be honest, I did know about it at one stage, and I've forgotten more than I can remember.
Yeah, but South Africans are really focused on sustainability, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Integrity and sustainability certified. So it's also, it's a lot to do with the practices they implement at the farms, and also their employment conditions.
Of course,
and how they look after the staff, the workers, the pickers, the packers, the warehousemen, and there's certain standards that you aspire to meet, and if you meet them, then you get a certification and you get the sticker. We used to call it the bus pass.
The bus pass. I love it, but that's really important, I think, in today's day and age.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing that one. What a treat. I'm so excited by this one, by this episode, actually, because I think, again, I have always believed that South African wines were underrated, and now you're really showing me why. But we're moving to the Chenin.
Chenin.
So for those that don't know, Chenin Blanc is really famous in South Africa. It obviously started in the Loire, and then taken over to South Africa, and it's become really their national grape, hasn't it?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Its history really is rooted in France.
Yeah.
But South Africa has massive plantations of Chenin Blanc, and at one stage had almost absurd levels of Chenin Blanc, and they've had to cull that back. A lot of it was going into distillation, but they've learnt what they can do with it. So it's interesting. There was a conversation that I picked in about a week or two ago with my colleague in South Africa, Michael Frijon, and he was talking about what is South Africa's pathway to the future. And we're all looking for that edge. We're all looking for what's going to give us a competitive advantage or something unique that people will aspire to get involved in. And he believes, and I think it's a great suggestion or a great ideal, is South Africa's old vine stocks are quite big. Mm-hmm. So an old vine being, vines that are 30, 40, 50-year-old, they're no longer trellised. They're bush vine. They're small yield, super highly concentrated wines, and the product that you get out of that is just mind-blowingly rich. But not only mind-blowingly rich, it's so concentrated that its ageability is phenomenal.
Yeah. Is this an old vine Chenin Blanc? No. Okay.
I'm not actually too sure about the longevity of these vines, but the cool thing about this wine is this is made by one of these young guns. We've got a couple of young guns in the stable, and we love really getting in and supporting these young guys. Yeah. This is a winemaker by the name of Martin Lamprecht. See, I did it, Lamprecht.
So impressed.
And his vineyards are located in the Swartland region, and Swartland's very trendy. Mm-hmm. It's very buck the trend. It's very, we will do things our way.
Because I think, from my knowledge, that's more of the bigger region, like the more mass production region of South Africa.
It's north of Cape Town, north of Stellenbosch, north of Paarl. It's the more dry and arid region. At one stage, it had a lot of bulk production, but that was quite a long time ago, and there's still probably bulk production there. The riverland, for want of a better word, of South Africa is more the Breda River. Okay. Which is towards the east of Stellenbosch and Franschhoek area, where there's plains, large plains, and the flat plains are where they do the bulk wines, and then on the hills they'll do more the fine wine production because you can get the climatic
obviously
variation.
The slope's good.
Yeah.
So this is from that
Swartland.
So that's, but what sort of climate is that there?
So it verges on coastal and Mediterranean.
So because it's down, because it's got that.
So you'll get coastal influences because you've got I should know what the seas are. I think it's the Atlantic. I can't remember. It's been that long.
I reckon.
And so you get the Atlantic moderation. So you get the cool climate or the cool winds coming in to moderate climate.
Sure.
But then you've got your distance inland. So you've got that Mediterranean. So hot days, cool nights. Yeah, and then a lot of mountains. So the mountains trap in that air, and you get all the little mesoclimates in the bits and pieces, and then you can do really cool things. And this guy's doing cool stuff.
Awesome. Tell us about this guy. Marras.
No airs and graces. It's sort of shorts and t-shirt. Doesn't matter if it's winter or summer, I would assume, from the videos I've seen of him. He's a great guy. He likes getting in. He believes in the soil. Let the wine talk for itself. Minimal intervention winemaking.
Love it. Very trendy right now too.
Yeah. But they're not verging on that obscure sort of orangey regime. Yeah. Let's have a look at the wine so I can refresh the mind.
Yeah, this is so aromatic, like super aromatic. This pops out of the glass.
And again, concentrated.
Super concentrated,
rich and not unctuous, but it's linear. There's so much acid going in there. There's so much rich, ripe, sweet fruit. This is a classic Chenin. And what I mean by classic Chenin is if you sit back in the mouth, you get that honeyed flavours coming through. And I should be spitting this, but there you go. I'm not going to spit this one.
You don't want to spit it. The acidity is amazing, right? The acidity is outstanding.
So this wine, it was left for 4 hours on its skins, just to give it a little bit of a boost. And then it's used a combination of barrel and tank fermentation. And it's matured on the lees for 6 months.
I was going to ask if you had lees contact, because it's got that creaminess coming through as well.
$20.
Shut up.
$20.
Shut up.
$20.
That is wild.
Yeah.
People, like the finish, it's like I can still taste it. How long? You spoke for like, what, 15, 20 seconds, and I can still taste
4
it.
minutes.
It's not, look, it must be good. That really over-delivers.
Yeah. And all of his wines do the same. So there's another Chenin, which comes, so this is from the Swartland region, and then just into and around the Swartland region is quite a mountainous slope, and it's called Picaniers's Kloof, and we've got a Chenin from Picaniers's Kloof, and then he does, it's sort of the Beaujolais style he's into in his reds, so he does a Beaujolais style Pinotage, a Cinsault, a Grenache, and a
You're going to have
Shiraz
to send me a bunch of his stuff.
blend, and they're all $20.
That's you have to send me some of this stuff. Like, this is really good. These are really good, easy drinking, nothing pretentious.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good introduction to Chenin Blanc too.
It's a great introduction, and we've got a stable of Chenin Blancs.
Yeah.
But it was really about highlighting, again, the small guys in the portfolio. We've got some cool ones. The previous one, the Vondeling, their Chenin's $16 or $15, and it just
that's wild
punches
to me
so
that it's
way
so
above.
cheap.
Yeah.
Like, how are they? Like, so that's the thing. Again, it's underrated because
Best kept secrets of the wine world.
I'm
Ange.
telling you, I agree, and that's why I really wanted you on the show today, because I think that there is a market out there of people who are drinking really bad, cheap Australian wine, or like cheap French wine, when they could be going to South Africa, supporting a country that needs it.
Absolutely,
by the way,
at the moment, absolutely.
At the moment, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, always, but especially at the moment.
Especially at the moment. I don't know if anyone knows, but during the last 3 months, you know, this country wasn't even allowed to sell it domestically. Like, they weren't allowed to sell their wine, so they're about to lose over 100 wineries.
Potentially with COVID, yeah.
It's terrible. So you can go out and buy beautiful products like this that are really well produced, textbook perfect if you're learning about this varietal. But just like this, I don't know, it's really lovely. You got not oaked, like it's just really easy drinking, lovely. Like all that honeysuckle, all that fresh acidity. All the beautiful fruits that come with Chenin. I'm very impressed with that. Honey.
I can never get past the honey.
I know, it's just honey. I know. But there's lots of fruit as well. That's lovely. But just to finish, a great food wine.
And again, they're doing cool things here with innovation, going back to that old vine story. One of our producers, or the ones in our portfolio, Stellenrest, do a barrel fermented Chenin, which you've had.
Yeah, I think I did.
At the Global Fine Wine Challenge.
That's right.
But they leave a slight bit of botrytis into the mix, and you just get this amazing wine. It just lifts it, and it's unlike any other Chenin you've had, and you go, wow, it's a memorable wine. You never forget it. So, yeah.
That's really cool.
So we're doing cool stuff.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that
Don't
one.
knock that over.
No, I don't want to do that. Let's move on. You brought me, like, Ross also knew that I was a rosé fiend, so he brought me a rosé to try today. I really wish people were here to try these wines. What we are going to do, though, after this, is just stock levels are obviously an issue with everyone due to the recent situation.
Restrictions, yeah.
But as soon as all these wines come in, Ross is going to put together a case that our customers or anyone that's watching this can actually purchase for a really great price. So you'll be able to try all of these wines, which will be very fun.
You know, the only one that we've got slight stock issues coming up with is the Shiraz, and there's still some stock of that, so we could probably punt that.
You can do that straight
away?
Up, yeah. Awesome.
Well, not many. There won't be many.
I know we've only gone through like 3 wines, but I'm so impressed already. Like, these are great.
Are you drunk yet?
No, we're not drunk yet. We just started.
Damn, I'm trying hard enough.
He's trying to take advantage of me.
Oh, here we go.
All right, tell me about this. So I'm a rosé fiend, as you know.
Okay.
Creation.
I want you to taste it before I tell you about it, because this wine just makes me sing. And that's a bit,
can you please
that's
sing
a bit
for
weird.
us?
No, not today.
Come
it's just a
on.
bit weird me saying that, because I was never really a big rosé drinker. And then we had the samples and we went, that's an absolute. And then I left it for a bit. And then I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago with for the guys in Hermanus and in the
where from?
In the Himmel in Orde.
Sorry, where from?
Fallet. Hermanus.
Sorry, say it again.
Yeah.
Himmel and Arda.
Himmel in Orde.
Himmel and Arda.
Yeah.
Is
It
that
means
right?
heaven and earth, not heaven and.
This is another region of South Africa that we don't know about.
Yes.
So Himmel.
Himmel en Arde.
Okay, so this is another area in South Africa I have no idea about.
Yeah, it's
so
right
please.
down on the coast. If you know the geography of South Africa, there's a big U-shaped bay called False Bay. Cape Town's on one edge of it, and Hermanus and Hielman Arde's on the other edge of it. And there's a lot of whale watching goes on there. And if you keep driving down that coast, another, I don't know, half an hour to an hour, you'll get to where they do the shark diving in those cages.
I was going to ask you if that's where
you
the
see
shark
that
diving
on,
is. Yeah.
on the getaways and all those
Yeah.
programs. So that's just further down the coast where those
So
guys
much more
get
coastal influence,
really
obviously.
hungry. Oh, right on the coast.
Yeah. Okay.
Right
beautiful.
on the coast.
Yeah. So
You can
very
s- you can
similar.
You can pretty much see the sea.
Beautiful. So this would be very similar to, like, say, Hawke's Bay in New
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, like Hawke's
Yeah.
Bay, New Zealand. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
But
Okay, I'm
taste the
excited.
wine. I just want to see your reaction before you do this, because I
nose
love
is
this
so
wine.
beautiful. Okay, let's have a look. Because on the nose, it's stunning. Like,
And it's a weird blend to have in here.
yep,
Zing,
that's
zing,
good.
zing,
It's
zing, zing,
Beautiful. Yeah, wow.
zing.
It's just like beautiful jammy fruits.
Yep.
Lovely
Strawberries and cream.
Strawberries and cream, of course. But
Strawberries
more
and
than
cream.
strawberries, though. It's got more of a tart berry, like a tart,
Yeah.
like a cherry or
Yeah.
boysenberry kind of
Yeah.
thing going on.
I love it. And then you got the Viognier in there to just give it that lift.
That little bit of
So
apricot's
it's a
coming through
Grenache
again.
Noir or Grenache,
Grenache.
that's made into
Grenache,
a rosé.
as we know Grenache,
Yeah,
yes.
and Viognier, and I think it's
This is
I
lovely.
think it's an 80-20 split. I can't quite remember. So if I've got that wrong, apologies. But Creation is one of those unique wine stories. I don't think Creation existed when I lived in South Africa. I left South Africa in '99. I don't think they were around. I stand to be corrected if they were or not. But it pretty much the owners, proprietors, Carolyn Martin and Jean-Claude Martin, picked out this piece of land and went, that's where we're doing it.
Yeah,
and
right.
it was vegetation and trees, and they just went zip. And they planted vines, and it's quite an undertaking to do what they've done. And in 20 years, they've built this brand, and I was stunned because I was on a video call with Carolyn Martin a couple of weeks ago. The size of the visitation that comes through the Creation cellar door is mind-blowing.
Really?
And they really have a focus on cellar door tourism. And South Africa as a whole does cellar door tourism better than anywhere in the world,
No.
I believe.
Really?
Peter McAtamney from Wine Business Solutions always quotes South Africa as being the benchmark, or when I say he always quoted, he did quote. I haven't spoken to Peter in a couple of months or a couple of years. But they always use South Africa as the bench case, as the benchmark.
Yeah.
And the South African cellar door experience is always so unique compared to other places. And it's not to say that Australia's bad, or it's just different. And I guess
you know you're going to take me to South Africa at
yeah,
some point, right?
well, we're all going. I mean, I've got a whole
Everyone has to
I've got a
come.
whole posse that's coming with me.
We have to
So,
go to South Africa.
there's
That's
just, and I
amazing.
think it's also the scenery. You're dropped in this beautiful, beautiful, pristine location with gorgeous mountains all around you, and you can't help but just fall in love with the whole spectrum of experiences that you're getting, and then great wine.
Yeah, I
And
do have
great
to say the amount of times, because like we obviously import South African wine as
Yeah.
well, and the amount of times that people will email me saying, I was in South Africa and, you know, it's like that's where their first touch of wine, South African wine came from, and they want to experience that again.
Absolutely.
So that it's obviously a big testament to what they're doing
Absolutely,
over there.
yeah.
So they've got a fantastic experience. We
They
want to
got
go there.
they really focus on the journey with
Right.
the client. It's unlike anywhere I've ever heard of or
Wow.
seen or experienced, and I haven't experienced it firsthand. But we were lucky enough to employ into Brave New World Wine just a couple of months ago Joanne Corbett, who was from Creation, and she moved to Australia less than a year ago. And she now runs our operation like that. You know, 2 boys, no idea. Bring Joanne, all organised.
So what happens when you put a woman into it, Ross?
Yeah, here we go. so Joanne's great, and through that experience and having more exposure to Creation, we've learnt a lot.
I love it.
And their wines are great. I mean, their Pinot Noir is phenomenal. Their Reserve Pinot is mind blowing, and the Himmel Arde Valley is really good with its Pinot. It's the Pinot area, more the Burgundian style South African
Nice.
area. So Chardonnay Pinot
Yeah,
is
sure.
really where the focus, and there's
Whereas
great
most
producers.
of South Africa is mainly Rhone style.
There's a lot of Rhone everywhere else.
Rhone style.
And I guess
great.
that's the maritime climate influence. Great for Sauv Blanc, great for some sparkling as well. Smaller region, but I think it's destined to be the finer wine end of the market.
I'm excited to see what else comes out of here. This is
Yeah, I mean, there's already established producers like Hamilton Russell, Newton Johnson, Bouchard Finlayson. They're all big names in South
South
Africa.
Africa. I was going to say, they're big names in South Africa.
and in Europe and
Yeah,
in
nice.
America and in Germany and the other markets, but we're still starting that journey here. So
I'm excited. Well,
come and join it.
This is great. This is a fantastic rosé. And, there was an episode once upon a time that we did around rosé and why Australians really need to be trying stuff that's not Provence. You know what I mean? Like, try something that's not Provence, because this kind of stuff is wild. Like,
Yummy.
really, really lovely wines.
All right.
Does that mean we're up to our reds already?
Yeehaw.
Oh my God, I'm having way too much fun. I don't want to be on reds yet. All right, where are we starting on the reds?
We're starting with, can't remember, Shiraz.
Okay. It should be on the list.
Just start anyway.
Okay, so from an Australian perspective, we're going to be going through a Pinot Noir today, but we're starting with the Shiraz. That seems like, for the average punter, that would be strange. Why is this lighter than the Pinot?
Do you think it is?
I don't know. You're telling the story.
No, I don't think it is.
No? Okay. Are they all about the
And to be honest, I think we got the order mixed up, but there you go.
Oh, okay. Oh, hang on. We have a question.
Oh, yes.
Why are South African wines so inexpensive? Is the cost of production that much lower than the rest of the wine world?
It's a good question, Lee Dryden. There's a lot to do with the exchange rate. There's a lot to do...
But it's US dollar. Or is it rand?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends which way you're purchasing it. If you're purchasing in South African rand from Australia, it's going to be in your advantage. If you're purchasing in US dollars, it's going to be different. Because
I purchase in US dollar.
you hinge your currencies against different markets. I think the bottom line, Lee, to answer your question is South Africa hasn't caught on to what they're sitting on as yet. And funny enough, I think we've mentioned it, we've got a container on the water shortly with you as well. And we've noticed some phenomenal price increases. There's been 3 price increases in the last 18 months. And there's been, and that's at the general end. And then we've noticed at the higher end, the more premium wines, anything up to 50 or 60% increase in pricing. So for the longest time, I think South African wines were way undervalued and underpriced on the market.
Catch on.
And they're starting to catch on.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, it's catching on, and it's brand segmenting and tiering. So
Okay.
there's a lot of unknowns.
It's also
in that,
because you'd say, some people would say, oh, well, there might be that people aren't getting paid enough or whatever. But when with South Africa, they're actually focused on that, making sure that everyone's getting paid the right amount, and for them to still not realise what they're charging too little.
But on that point, in Australia, we're fortunate we have a minimum wage.
They don't have.
We don't have that in South Africa.
See, interesting.
And cost of production is going to be lower, bigger wine estates, larger workforce.
Yeah.
Lots of variables.
Sure.
Too many different variables to really sum up to get a result. But
Would it also because shipping, you're still Southern Hemisphere, like shipping over is quite cheap compared to Europe and I don't know.
Shipping, it's
Shipping,
still
yeah,
it's
still
still expensive.
expensive.
It depends which way you
It's
go.
still
If an
expensive,
LCL,
exactly.
FCL, etc. So yeah.
No, great question. I should actually ask that. I'm sorry, I get so involved with this conversation. I actually forget to ask. If anyone has any questions,
Please send
please
them
make
in.
sure you pop them up. Does anyone have any questions? Let me know before we move on to the reds, because we'll move on. Okay, we'll move on.
All right.
So we're doing the Shiraz, which obviously seemed crazy to me, but we are doing the Shiraz. That was your choice, by the way.
Okay.
Purple.
My fault.
My God, brand new. What vintage is this?
So 2017.
How is that 2017?
So
It's purple.
smell it though. Have a nose of that.
Whew.
So
Whoa.
these guys are cool. These guys are great, and I've got awesome memories of this area. So imagine beautiful winelands with mountains and lambs and all the cliches,
lambs.
right? It's not that at all.
Oh, really?
Cederberg is due north of Cape Town, good couple of hours, at least 2.5 to 3 hours drive into the desert.
Okay,
So
yeah,
you're
you
driving-
can tell it's
You're driving into the desert, and you're driving into altitude. So Cederberg is at 1,000 meters above sea level.
Okay.
So lots of climatic bits and pieces come into play here. Cool nights, hot days, arid. And Cederberg Estate is the only winery in Cederberg. So they pretty much have it dominated.
Love it.
But the wines that are coming out of here are phenomenal. That maritime influence with the Mediterranean inland influence gives you these great, rich wines. These guys are doing amazing Sauv Blancs, amazing Chenin Blancs. They even have a plantation of a variety called Bukattraub, which is pretty much extinct.
Really?
And they have some.
Hang on, but is it extinct? Is it like a European grape, or is it a South African?
I don't know the origins. Probably European.
Yeah.
And was grown at a certain scale in South Africa for a certain time, back in the good old days, but really fell out of favour. It's akin to like a Gewürztraminer, but without all that musket
Yeah,
features, and
interesting.
it's got a sweetness to it. Very light aromatic wine, and they make it in small production. And we bring in pretty much what they'll allow us, which is
Sure.
5 to 10 does. It's not much,
Oh,
but it's a fun wine.
Right.
And again, it's a cheapie. It's
Yeah.
sub 20 or thereabouts.
wow.
Cederberg Chenin, 1,000 meters at altitude, and Shiraz, not Syrah, Shiraz. So they're going out full throttle. We're making a Shiraz. We're showing you the cards. Bring it Australia.
Yeah.
Bring it New Zealand. Bring it wherever you're making full
And they're
throttle,
bringing it.
full throttle Shiraz. So have a look at this.
They are bringing it. It's
Yeah.
full of oak. Like Australians would love this. Like lovely oak, but all that beautiful red and purple fruit.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
it's just pumping with
Black
jammy
currants
fruit.
and spice
black
and bits and
It
pieces
is
like that.
pumping with all that fruit. You wouldn't know if it's
But look at that
Australian.
colour.
I know. I can't believe that's
Super thick.
2017.
And this needs a decant. We really need to
I know.
have this in a
Look,
decanter.
we're
And it's
going
not
out for
possible.
dinner after, and we're going to have it decanted, okay? Or at
Okay.
least be like 2 hours after we open
I'm not
it.
going to wake up tomorrow.
But what shocks me, I shouldn't say concerns me, what shocks me is it's a 2017 and it's still purple. And we've spoken about colour on this show before. When it's purple, it means it's brand new. It hasn't even got the age on it yet. Like this has years
Yeah.
on it. Like
Yep.
10 years you can sit this. And what's with all these awards? Tell us about that.
I'm not quite sure what we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that the 2016 or the 2015 Shiraz was entered into the Global Fine Wine Challenge or the Six Nations
Mm-hmm.
Wine Challenge and won.
Mm.
And there's some cool photos that often pop up on social media, and it looks like it's like this quilt of
Yeah.
medals, and I can always see mine
The
sticking in there
the
somewhere. It's
Global
like,
Fine
"Ah,
Wine
it's me."
Challenge. Yeah.
But double platinum winner, New York. So New York, this one has only got New York labels on it, but one of the others has,
Wow.
it's got Decanter, it's got
Double platinum.
Wine Mag, South
yeah.
Africa, it's got the Michelangelo Awards, which are all the local ones,
Yeah.
and then the like IWSC, and wherever they participate,
they
they
show up,
generally
but
do well. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then they've got a whole reserve range of wines on top of this. Again, we go back to reserve Chenins and reserve Cabernets and things like that. So they're really trying to tear it all the way through.
Yep.
And then when they can't do something well in their region, they'll go and buy fruit.
From somewhere else.
So getting back to where Himmel and Arde is.
I love every time he says it. Every time he says it, it makes me so
And
excited.
we go further south into the cool region. They're sourcing Sauv Blanc and Pinot Noir from the coolest vineyards in Africa. And then they truck it the 4 or 5 hours all the way back to Cederberg and they make the wine. And the winemaker was in town for Pinapalooza last year,
really?
Alex Nell, and he makes the white wines and his wife makes the red wines. So
No way. I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. They do great work, and we work closely with them on various bits and pieces in wine. So, and Cederberg, we want to become one of our pillars, one of our core brands that we'll always
Sure.
work with. So,
Well, it's beautiful. And if anyone is a Shiraz drinker out there,
Oh,
you've
yeah.
got all the things. You've got the black currants, you've got the spice.
if you love
you've got-
McLaren Vale, tick the boxes.
Say, I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say McLaren Vale, but it's very similar to McLaren Vale. You've got all that beautiful, jammy, red and purple fruit. It's got all that spice. It's a base sale. It's 14.5% alcohol. Like it's
Absolutely.
a base. It's got all that beautiful oak, but it's not overpowering. Lovely finish, beautiful acidity. I can't believe this. I would not be drinking this for like another 5-6 years
And
because I'd want to see the gaminess come out. I reckon the Shiraz would turn into quite a gamey character because I don't know. There's something about it, but right now it's just all fruit.
Yep.
And we talked about earlier the bridge between the new and the old world.
Yep.
This is where you see the new world.
Absolutely.
This is pumping full of new world
And
fruit.
then you'll get the savoury elements just popping in on the back end of it.
Yeah, but I think in like 5-6 years, like right
Beautiful.
now, it's just
Beautiful.
It's just fruit.
Yeah.
This is perfect if
It's
you're.
it's a teenager,
It's a
ready to rock and roll.
nee, 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 nee. All right, love it. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. It's just I think people just I don't
I
know.
don't want to pull that out.
I know that's my actual problem.
Keep nosing that.
You know, I think if people have watched this show enough, they know I always spit the wines, but these wines have been so interesting that I'm struggling to spit it.
All right.
I'm really excited for this now.
Ta-da.
I'm really excited because, you know, to
I love how
me,
you're pouring my wine for me. That should be my job.
oh yeah, what a gentleman. No, this is what I'm really excited about because Pinotage is to South Africa what Shiraz is to the Barossa Valley.
Yep.
Let's have a chat about Pinotage before we talk about this brand. Go for it. Tell me about
Okay,
Pinotage.
so
Let's. What is it?
This is interesting. It's not what you said to me in the car.
What was it?
You can say that, but I'm not going to
I'm
say
not
that.
gonna
bit,
say that.
'cause
My
I don't
mum's
know
watching.
if this is R-rated or anything like that.
My mother's watching. I'm not going to say that, Ross.
Okay. Hi, Mum. At Elsenberg Agricultural College, everyone's laughing.
Is Sharon watching, Nick? Is Sharon watching?
at Elsenburg Agricultural College, which is, I was mentioning earlier, which is the wine academy, or for want of a better word, there was a professor called Adam Perold, and he had this dream of combining the best qualities of a grape variety called Hermitage. Now, not Syrah, it's Cinsault. Hermitage is called Cinsault in Portugal.
Okay.
And combining the robust characters of this with Pinot Noir. So he wanted to make a warm climate Pinot Noir. It needs cool climate. This is 1925, right? There's no internet, there's no social media, right? And so this was going to be a bit of a challenge. So what they did was they took seeds, or they grafted, I should say, Pinot Noir and Hermitage. And they got these seeds from this grafting, and he planted them in his garden. And then he forgot about it. And then he left the university. And then in 1927, a team from the university came round to tidy up his house and clear out the garden and throw all the rubbish out. And one of the guys who knew him knew that he was doing something and found these vines in his garden and rescued them. And he ripped them up and he took them to Elsenburg, and they started working on them and looking at what could be done with them. And in a couple of years later, 1935, they propagated it to a point where they could graft it onto a rootstock. It was for those playing at home, it was a Richter 99 and a Richter 57 rootstock. And don't forget, it's important to note that phylloxera was big in South Africa and did a lot of devastation to the vineyards there. So the whole rootstocking was something that was happening. And they propagated a vine and they planted it. And in 1941, a wine was made at Elsenburg. And in 1941, they'd also sent a sample to Kanonkop. Kanonkop, not Kanonkop, to Kanonkop.
Kanonkop,
And so in 1941, Kanonkop, these guys planted their first Pinotage vine. And
are you telling me this is the first Pinotage ever planted?
The first Pinotage was planted at Elsenburg.
Yeah, I know, but
and they sent a varietal.
But this is the first commercially planted Pinotage?
Yes, I believe, and the research is showing that. In 1941, it was planted at Elsenburg and propagated, and in Kanonkop and planted. So
wow, that's pretty cool.
So Kanonkop are known as the Pinotage guys. They are known as the original dudes on the block, the NKOTBs, you know, new kids on the block, the originals.
Okay.
Anyway, it's had a mixed history.
Okay.
It wasn't made well for a lot of time. People were learning what they'd made. It was pretty much like Frankenstein. They didn't know what they had.
But it's because it's a weird crossing between Pinot Noir and Cinsault.
Yeah, until they learned how to make it properly, the results varied greatly. It had initial great success. It won some, I think it won the Cape Wine Awards in the mid-50s or late 50s, and everyone's going, wow, what's this? But that was pretty much its early accolade, and everything could have teetered from there.
Sure.
And so there's been a lot of toing and froing, and how do we make this, how do we not make this? And it can make a gamut of styles. It can make a very gamey style wine, or it can make a very fruit-driven style wine, or it can make a very thick and unctuous Barossa style.
That's what I'm used to.
Monster.
Chocolatey,
and yeah,
you know,
you've
tobacco leathery kind
absolutely.
of thing going through, yeah.
And we've got a Pinotage made by the Vondeling guys, and it's a monster. I mean, it's a $60 or $70 wine.
It's
an
soft.
absolute monster. So that was fun and games. But from 2007 to 2017, they really cleaned up their act. And demand grew. So it went from about 3 million litres a year to about 5 million litres. And then it's incrementally increased every year from there on in. So
sure. But now it really is, Pinotage is distinctly South African. There's not really any other country that's got this, is there?
Well, there's bits and pieces. But just getting back to this while we're touching on it, this varietal contributes about 495 million rand to the wine economy of South Africa. So it's really gone from, what are we going to do with this, to we know what we're doing now, let's push hard.
For those that don't know, what does that translate into, like US dollar?
Divide by 10.5 to 11, so 50 million.
$50 million. Wow, that's significant.
Yeah, it's a significant varietal. So Kanonkop itself, fathers of Pinotage.
Yeah.
Red wine specialists. I've driven past this wine estate so many times when I was a teenager, driving to work every morning. Most picturesque area. It's
Really?
on the slopes of the Simonsig mountains, just past the Helderberg Mountains, where I grew up.
Yep.
On its way outside of Stellenbosch. And the name Kanonkop signals cannon head. Is what it means. Kanonkop, cannon head. And there was a high enough outlook that the farmers at Kanonkop could see the trade ships coming into Table Bay in the 1600s and 1700s and 1800s, and they would fire a cannon to notify everyone to go to market to supply the ships. Cannon head. And as you drive through the doors, there's two cannons at the front gates now. I don't know if it's the original cannons, but it's kind of cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so Pinotage specialists, bush vine, old vine. I mean, some of the average vines are 60 years old, and they make, this is entry level. This is 20.
Is this entry level?
This is $20 a bottle.
Shh, really?
And then we go to estate, which is about $40 a bottle, and then they've got a reserve, which is significantly more expensive, $100 plus.
Yeah.
But small batch production. And then they also specialise in Cabernet and Bordeaux blends. So Kanonkop was the first New World, I have to get this right, it was the first New World winery to be awarded 100 pointers by Tim Atkin.
Really?
And that was last year, and that was for the 2015 Paul Sauer, which is their Bordeaux blend. And Paul Sauer was one of the original men about town for Kanonkop, one of the establishers.
Yeah,
He got the name out there. So, yeah.
I'll tell you what, this smells incredible. Like I'm loving this conversation, but I've wanted to drink it.
I'm thirsty.
It smells.
Your turn to talk.
No, but it smells so beautiful. Like it's got all that beautiful spice, but a little bit of oak, not a lot of oak, just enough to really give it a lot of depth, but lots of that you could really taste the earth, like smell the earth.
That's what
Lots
I've
of
always said.
terroir.
People say to me, "What's that flavour?" And I say, "You're tasting Africa." And that's what you're doing.
You can really, that's exactly what you
Very earthy.
get.
Again,
It's
we go back to that
earthy,
earthy
gamey.
discussion, earthy, savoury, and then there's just enough sweet fruit to give it a sort of
All
a
that purple
compliment.
fruit. Yeah,
It doesn't
absolutely.
go against it; it just complements
Yeah.
it on the way through.
But again, the bridge between old
and
world
new.
and new world. You can taste terroir,
Yep.
if that's the word you want to use.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's one thing I think a lot of people get scared of with Pinotage. And again, you did say that they do differ greatly, but I think that this dry, tannic, like dusty kind of flavour scares a lot of people. But if you think about Boerewors, like the Boerewors, you say it better than me. Boerewors, like all the food that the South Africans eat.
Oh, Boerewors.
Boerewors, that's what I mean.
Yes.
If you think about that, if you think about all the meats and stuff, this is perfect. Like
Yeah.
it makes sense. And I always try and say, if you're trying to match food with wine, go back to what they eat in that country.
Absolutely. And like Australia, we're a barbecue nation or a braai. We cook meat all the time. What's vegetables? Don't worry about that.
Nah, don't worry about
Maybe some
potatoes.
corn and
Maybe
potatoes.
exactly.
But and this is a barbecue wine. This
Exactly.
this is a winter casserole, or this is a summer braai.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
This is really
Everything
lovely.
works.
But yeah, easy drinking, nothing pretentious.
No.
Like a
Fun.
bit of oak.
Fun in a bottle.
Yeah, but it's just you'd expect a bottle like this to look like to be more expensive and because it looks so great.
Yeah, $20.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
crazy.
if you
Crazy.
we should try the estate next time. One level up.
Oh, are we going to do this next time? In
Yeah,
like
when
8
you
weeks
when
after
you invite me.
Yeah, after 8 weeks of me doing it. All right, well, the saddest thing is that it does bring us to our last wine for today, and I am so excited to try this. This is the Meerlust Pinot 2017. Tell us about this
So
from Stellenbosch.
I stand to be corrected here, but Meerlust is approximately 5 k's from the beach, from False Bay. So again, coming back to that geography of South Africa,
Yep.
there's a big bay that's called False Bay because they thought it was the real bay, but it was the false bay. So, they
Oh,
called
so it is a false. So I'm saying, is that like false as in like...
FALSE.
Okay, cool, yeah.
They thought it was Table Bay, which was the main entry, and it was they got mixed up with the geography and the compass, and they thought it was the main entry into Cape Town. It wasn't, so they called it False Bay. Anyway, it's 5 k's from the beach, so heavy maritime influence, and a classic Burgundian producer. So specialise in Chardonnay, Pinot, Cabernet, Bordeaux blends. And this is the result.
smells
One of the
amazing.
most famous wines out of South Africa is Meerlust Rubicon.
Okay.
Now, I would have bought it today, but we're out of stock.
Of course.
Thanks, COVID. Anyway, Meerlust Rubicon it's in that upper echelon with the Kanonkop brands. When you think of South Africa, you think of Meerlust and you think of Kanonkop. Those are the
Okay.
2 key brands, major push,
What are they
and
giving to you
our
then?
biggest sellers. Oh, yeah. Had the rest, now try the best. So Meerlust is very much old school in its thought processes. It's a family estate. It's been in the Myburgh family since 1756.
Wow.
So yeah, a long time. But Burgundian-style Chardonnays, Burgundian-style or French-style Cabernets, Bordeaux-style Cabernets, Bordeaux-style Bordeaux blends, and Burgundy-style Pinots. So have a look, see what you think
It
first while we're going.
smells outstanding.
I mean, Ange is not
This-
telling you that she already opened this bottle before we started
Look,
and had a
let
little
me
sample.
Why tell people that?
Yeah. See, unlike everyone else, I tell her how it is.
No, this smells amazing. And the reason we opened it earlier was because Ross said, I want you to see how this opens up over the hour since we opened it essentially. This is so beautiful in the nose. Has this got whole bunch?
Yeah, there's about 20% whole bunch into this, which
Yeah.
gives it that cherry and
burst of cherry.
there's cherry, strawberry characters, more cherry characters. And then there's French oak used. So it's pressed directly into French oak for a bit of malolactic fermentation. And then 11 months in new and second fill French hogsheads. And then the average age of these vines is about 21 years. So they're well
getting on
established
there,
and they're getting
yeah.
on, doing well.
But there's something else in the nose that's so sweet and beautiful. I don't know if it's just like this little bit of sweet spice, and it's like a nutmeg or I don't know what it is, but it's really attractive.
I'm getting like dried cloves, a little bit of clove. But yeah, I
It's
love
almost,
that.
I know this might sound crazy, but there's like a little bit of olive brine now starting to come out of this
Yep.
wine. Olive
Yep.
brine, cherries.
There's a way that they work with the vines, and I don't know the technical wording for it, but they're not scared of using a little bit of green.
Yeah, and that's from the whole bunch, I guess. That's
Yeah,
what,
they're not scared of that green in the wine at all. And then they're starting to come through on the back palate, and it's not unpleasant. It adds complexity to the wine. You like?
That is delicious. Like so many levels of delicious. But again, like people wouldn't think to just buy a South African Pinot Noir. You know.
Well, very little Pinot coming out of South Africa. There's only about 30 to 35 producers
Yeah, but just
in South Africa.
But how do we promote this? Like how do we get it out that you don't have to drink? Like with all due respect to a lot of the Australian wineries for a few vintages ago, or last few vintages, a lot of the best, most established regions of Australia, to me, have had some very boring Pinot Noir coming out.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing. And I'm
It's
sure you're
different.
going to tell me some ridiculous price point.
It's around about 35 to 39 bucks.
So
a
why would you
bottle.
spend $60 on something that you go, well, that
And
wasn't
it'll
right.
age. It'll age beautifully.
It'll age beautifully,
At least
yeah.
5 to 10 years easily.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Virgin
It's
close to the
got
5.
time as well.
Everything's
like
got time. We've got time in
no,
Africa.
I'm sorry. I
We're on
shouldn't say that.
African time.
No, it's got time, but like oregano and thyme.
Oh, that time. Yeah,
That's
that as
what I
well.
meant. That's what I.
Okay, we'll
This
work with
guy,
both of them.
This guy, seriously. Oh, Ross, these have been incredible wines. Like really beautiful wines. I'm so happy that we did this.
Should we keep going? I've got more wine in the car.
Yeah, I know. We should definitely. What did you guys?
literally do
would
have more wine in
you
the
guys
car.
like us to keep going? Is there something that we haven't explained? Is there something that you want to know about? Please let us know in the comments so that we can. Werner. Yes. Can you tell us about South
There's a
African
message from
Merlot?
Banner.
Jeez, what is he doing on there? We didn't really do a Merlot today, so probably a
There's
redundant
probably a reason for
question.
that.
Oh, is there a reason for that?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Have you seen the movie Sideways? Yeah.
I'm the only person in Australia,
You need to go
only
and
wine
take that
person in the
movie out
world that
tonight.
hasn't watched it.
So, I don't know. I'm sometimes unfair to Merlot. It's not
love
one of
Merlot.
my personal favourites, and that's just
I
me.
love Merlot.
I don't know how to answer this question. It's kind of, I think it comes down to personal preferences. We don't import Merlot. We don't really have any Merlots in our portfolio.
But is South Africa just not good for Merlot, or?
I look at the world for Merlot and I go, where's good Merlot coming from? And there is some good Merlot coming from France. And there's probably some good Merlot coming from Australia. And maybe a bit from New Zealand.
Thank you for the question.
It really comes down to your personal preferences. I find
love
Merlot a tough discussion to have at best of times, and Vanna would know that well.
Werner, I will show you guys. I'm going to send you both some Merlot, and let's see
I'm
if we
waiting for
can
another
change his mind.
smart comment coming through. in a
Let's
minute.
see. Let's see if we can change his mind about Merlot, because I think that Merlot is very underrated.
Let me answer it this way. In about, what was it, 2016, 2017, I was lucky enough to work at the Old Mutual Trophy Wine Show in South Africa. I flew over, I was working as sorting out some stock, of sourcing some items, tasting a lot. And I got to taste 40 or 50 Merlots through that show consecutively, without interruption. And there wasn't much that really caught my attention.
Okay.
And then I do the same with the Global Fine Wine Challenge. In fact, we do have Merlot as a category, but it struggles. It really struggles. And I look at the Boutique Wine Show, and it struggles.
Really?
As a variety. And I don't know if that's lack of entrance, like not lack of interest, it's people
Lack
not
of
entering it and we're not
entrance,
seeing it as a result, or they don't have it to enter, or they don't want to enter it. So
Interesting.
a combination of these. I just don't see a lot of Merlot. I think there's demand for Merlot at a price point, but when you hit that $20, I don't think people are really going to go, let's buy a Merlot, when you can buy any of these wines or any of your wines or Australian wines for $20 that really over-deliver. And it comes down to personal preferences again.
I feel like we can have another conversation around Merlot.
We've got to talk about music now.
Yeah, okay. No, we have no time. We've actually run out of time. But thank you so much, Ross.
Thank you, Ange. This has been fun.
This was so fun.
We're going to keep going.
I know.
Stop
we
the cameras,
you don't
get the
want
crew
to
in,
me
let's
and
roll.
Ross together is not a good thing. We would just sit there and talk and talk and talk. Guys, no, thank you so much. We'll do this again.
Thanks for the
We'll definitely do
opportunity.
this again.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for In the Bottle today. I do hope you learnt something about an area that I think is completely underrated, as I said. And we're going to put together a little 6-pack case where you can try some of these wines, because I'm blown away. Like, as you know, normally every week I'm spitting out these wines so I can drive. We might be sitting around here for a while now, just to ensure, because I just didn't want it, they're beautiful. They're beautiful wines. So thanks so much to Ross for giving me his time. Keep an eye out for that 6-pack case. Again, if you have any questions, just pop them into the comment section. We will jump online and answer whatever we can. And until next week, where I have another very special guest joining us, I want to thank you so much for joining me for In the Bottle. And again, I am your host, Angelica Nohra. See you next week.